Okay, I'm going to start by reading it. You'll think you're at a wedding. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Where there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, and then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Okay, let's start with the good part, the wedding part. The characteristics of love. Let's go through, tell me what comes to your mind when you hear these characteristics. Love suffers long. What does that mean to you? Patience. Love suffers long and is kind. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be kind? Helpful? Don't explode. That's part of long suffering. Yeah. As a husband and wife. And what? Being kind in that process and working out the communication. In premarital counseling, we talk about the meaning of love. And one of my favorite quotes is, love is not a feeling that you feel when you feel you're going to get a feeling that you never felt before. A lot of people equate love with how I feel. This particular word of love has nothing. W.E. Vine, in his word study, says that there's absolutely no emotion in agape, the kind of love we're talking about here. It is a decision. It is a will. It is a way to act. I will treat you like I'd want you to treat me if I were in your place and you were in mine. And so as we discuss that, I ask them, how do y'all feel about each other? And they'll tell and give all the characteristics, and here's what I like about this person. They're pretty and they're smart and they're fun, and this boy just goes on and on and on. So, okay, good. And then I describe to them what might happen in 25 years or less. You've agreed to save all this money. You've been saving and saving and saving and saving, and you've agreed when you get this particular amount in the bank, you're ready to shop for a house. You got enough for a down payment. And the husband comes in and said, honey, I want you to go with me somewhere. I want to show you something. Oh, what's that? I want to show you this new pickup I'm planning to get. What do you mean? Well, I just found this new pickup, and it is wonderful. She said, what do you mean? Where are you going to get the money? He said, oh, it's just about how much we got saved up to put on our house. And I got to thinking, you know, if we wait until we get a house, I may never be able to afford that. And you'll enjoy it. We're going to get it, you know, 4 front and back seats, so we'll be able to take kids in it, and we'll be able to haul stuff and just all kinds of things. And I'm going to let you pick out the color, because really it doesn't make any. How you going to feel about it? She said, no, we got to talk. No, he's going to do it anyhow. What are you going to do? That's not too fun, but is that scriptural reason for divorce, buying a new pickup? Probably a reason to go see a counselor, but not to get a divorce. And look at this bride that's coming up. She's sweet, pretty, Christian. But now 15 years down the road, she weighs 432 pounds. She cusses like a sailor. She's quit the church. Now what are you going to do? And she says, would you please go get me a double banana split? What are you going to do? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to tell her to get on a diet. She don't want to get on a diet. She wants a banana split. What are you going to do? So how are you going to deal with that kind of stuff? Ephesians chapter 4. Therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love. And that is pronounced long suffering. What's the meaning of long suffering? It means you suffer for a long time. Forbearing one another, some things you've got to put up with. That's what we're talking about here. Suffering for a long time and putting up with stuff that you'd rather not put up with. That's what love does. So love is patient, love is kind, love suffers long as it can, does not envy. What does that mean to you? What do you do when you envy somebody? Jealous. I wish I had what they had. And I don't like it that they have it and I don't. Love does not parade itself. What does that mean? Doesn't show off. Doesn't advertise. Arrogant. Yeah, good. Is not puffed up. What's being puffed up? Snooty. Bragging. Does not behave rudely. What is it to be rude? What is something that would be rude? Inconsiderate. Let me tell you what comes to my mind in the last 10 years. Amazing, amazing. Been to 10 churches in the last 16 years. So this is more recent than the first, and that's as specific as I'm going to get, and it wasn't that specific. But I was at one church. Hadn't been there very long, just a few weeks. Both these were leaders. I was talking to a man, an elder, and another man who had been an elder, who was his daddy. We were just talking, and he came up and interrupted us. We were talking. He said, "Where do you want to eat lunch?" He said, "I don't know, somewhere I can have breakfast." He said, "Well, that'll be fine. Come on when you get through." And he walked off. He didn't say, "Excuse me." He didn't say, "Jerry, would you and Gail like to join us for lunch?" He just interrupted, told where they were going for lunch, and took off. Lo and behold, a few weeks later, the exact same thing happened with two other people. One of the great things about interim ministry, you can pretty well get by saying whatever you want to. And so we were talking in a class. See, a lot of people say we're not growing. And the reason is the culture, and you just can't grow now because folks aren't interested. Well, that's interesting. It was worse shape in the first century than it is now. One of the reasons a lot of times we don't grow is that we are rude to people. If you'll do that to your preacher, you'll do that to visitors. And guess what? They won't come back again. That is rude. Love is not rude. It is not rude. Does not seek its own. What does it mean to seek your own? Selfish. Me first. Me first. Me first. I want what I want when I want it. Well, that wouldn't be helpful to me. I still want it. Me first. Is not provoked. Some translations say is not easily provoked. What does that mean? Okay. You got a governor on your temper. Nothing wrong with being angry. How do I know? The Bible tells me so. Mark 3:5, Jesus looked about them with anger, being grieved because of the hardness of their heart. Ephesians 4:26, be angry, do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And if you watch Jesus, guess what? He's the best person to imitate. He shows you how to do it. I love that passage when Jesus cleansed the temple. And here's something that's significant. Before he went down and overturned the tables of the money changer and drove them out with whips, he sat down and made a cord with ropes. He sat down. He didn't just grab something and start whacking them. He sat down and he prepared. Now, about how long a whip do I need and how hard do I need to hit them? And, you know, he measured his response. Now, it was quite a response, but he thought about it. That's what I need to do when I get angry. Nothing wrong with being angry. Probably for Jerry Barber, it'd be better to wait 2 or 3 days. Think about how I'm going to address that. Not easily provoked. Thinks no evil. What does that mean? Okay, what if I'm in a habit of doing that? How do I break the habit? Okay. Somebody said the best way to break a habit is to drop it. But the best way to drop it is to replace it with a good habit. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for edifying, that it may minister grace to the hearers. And so when I get ready to cuss or tell a dirty story, let's see, what could I say that would encourage this person? How can I compliment them? How can I tell them something I respect about them? What would be like giving them a gift? Well, that'd be better than cussing. I believe I'll do that. See, you replace those thoughts that are evil with a good thought. Thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity. Yeah.
You really try to make sure that you don't smile when you lie.
Okay. All righty. Here's a test. Here's a test. What do you do when you see Joe Biden messing up again or Donald Trump, whichever you wish? This is one of the hardest ones of mine to do, is not to say, he did it again. When are folks going to wake up? Looks like anybody know better. Why would they vote for somebody like that? Did you see this? And then you share it on Facebook. Not only do I want to rejoice, I want everybody else to rejoice. That's not nice. That's not nice. Love does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. What's the truth? God's Word. That's the basis for truth. Here's one of my pet things to do. I'm reading a book about 700 pages that a fellow is writing, and one of the things he wanted me to comment, it hadn't been published yet. But he does something which is kind of scraping fingernails on a blackboard. Several times in his book he uses the word truths, a plural. Ain't no such animal. Truth is truth. Truth is a system of non-contradictory information. It always runs in parallel lines. It never runs in it doesn't run into itself. Read Psalm 119, all 176 verses, I believe. In all but 2 or 3 verses, there are words for truth and for commandments and for statutes and for judgment, but there's no, as far as I can find in the earlier translation, King James, New King James, the word truths, pronounced that way, is found 2 times, and both of them were in the possessive sense. Singular truth, but it belongs to the truth, so it's for the truth's sake. There's no truths. And truth is Bible truth. Truth is the truth about me. Truth is the truth about you, and so I rejoice in truth, whether it's whatever it is, whatever it is. Rejoice in truth. And so if the truth is somebody that I don't like does something good, I need to rejoice in that and not rejoice when they mess up. Did you see what he did? That was good. Yeah, but he's not my buddy. Well, it's still truth. What he did was good. Let's have a party. Let's rejoice. Bears all things, believes all things, which means not suspicious, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Okay. Let's run through this again. This time, as we go through these characteristics, think of something in the life of Jesus, how he exemplifies this. If we want to find the best illustration of love, we look at Jesus. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So let's go through these. Love suffers long. When do you remember a time or a time in Jesus where he demonstrates suffering long? Oh, man. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Looking at that verse reminds me of the two guys praying on the street, where the one says he thinks that he's not like the other people, and that's saying he's puffed up, that he's better. I do all of this stuff, and he's trying to, and he's praying up down the street while he's praying. So it looks to me like he's showing himself to be puffed up, and then it says he's parading himself there too.
Okay. Okay. So Jesus demonstrated suffering long with Peter over and over and over and over again. Peter stuck his foot in his mouth and just rebuked the Lord when he said he was going to die. No, that'll never happen to you. No, over and over again. Kind. What comes to your mind when you think of Jesus being kind? Healing people. He had compassion on them. Compassion is feeling another's pain and doing something to alleviate the pain. Does not envy. Anybody think of a specific illustration? Okay, hey, good point. I was having... Yeah. And see, if Jesus was really tempted, then he wanted, the only thing that tempts me is what I want to do. See, some people say you just can't think about it. Have you ever been tempted to do anything you never thought about? That'd be pretty hard, wouldn't it? Are you tempted to do what you'd really want to do? Sure, I'm tempted to do what I want to do, not something that's despicable to me. I'm only tempted by what I desire. So good. Thank you for doing that. I hadn't come up with one. That's the reason I'm asking questions. I hadn't studied before. Yes. Okay, yeah. When Mama came with James and John, said, "Look, I want my boy to sit on your right hand and left hand," other people were filled with indignation. Okay, kind, does not envy, does not parade himself. That's it. Yeah, he took it on. His birth, wow, yeah. Where were you born? In the barn? I was born at Vanderbilt. No, I was born in the barn. And Ephesians 2, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even the death of the cross. Does not behave rudely. Yeah. All right, good, good. I heard a man who helped me understand love, Bob Rigdon from Sylva, North Carolina. And he one day was talking about love can come from eye contact. You ever talk to somebody and they're talking to right and they kind of look around. Love can be eye contact. love can also be breaking on eye contact, and that's the very illustration he used. I mean, what he is about to do is to scald them with guilt. But he didn't say, ha ha, I got you. He said, go right. And he looks up and everybody's gone. He gave him a chance to go home, save face, maybe think about it. Okay. Bears all things. What comes to your mind? On the cross. Believes all things. That's it. Hopes all things. Okay? Okay? When Peter cut off the man's ear, he stuck it back on. He said, don't you think that I could not pray to my Father and he will presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how would the scriptures be fulfilled that it must happen thus? He really believed and hoped, and that's the way you get hope, is believing what you can't see. It's going to work out okay. I really wish we could do it another way. Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Because I believe it's going to work out. I'd like to do it easier, but if can't, we'll do it right. And so that's what they did. Endures all things. Same scene. Love never fails. Okay? Let's go through it again and let's look not at Jesus but ourselves. Not the person sitting next to you or behind you, but which one do I need to work on the most? Which one do I need to look into the life of Jesus and say, here's what I need to do? Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not easily provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. So, just be a project for this week and the rest of my life to work on those characteristics of Jesus. So, it's what we used to think about. That's not the reason Paul wrote this chapter. And so for the first time, unless my memory's bad, I'm going to teach it in the context in which it was written. Some of the greatest helps to studying the Bible is stuff that was not originally written in the Bible, which is chapter and verse designations. What if we were trying to go to this passage this morning and say, well, let's go to 1 Corinthians. It's all maybe 3/4 of the way over there. Just keep looking. Here's the sentence we're going to begin with. Well, all we got to do is we're going to 1 Corinthians 13. One of the greatest hindrances to studying and understand the Bible are the chapter and verse designations. Because what is easy to do is pick out a verse and say that proves it, and fail to look at it in its context. So why did Paul write this? Last week we looked at 1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 talks about spiritual gifts. We talked about unity in diversity. Well, I don't believe in unity in diversity. Then you're going to have a weird-looking body. If all you have is one body part, you're going to have 165-pound eyeballs and 170-pound ear, and it's going to look weird. The only body that works well is diversified. It has eyes and ears and legs and fingers and toes. And every part of the body is essential for it to function properly. So Paul says there are diversities, that is diversity of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are diversities of ministries, but the same Lord. There are diversities of activities, but it is the same God who works in all in all. I confessed last week one of the mistakes I made as a younger preacher. I get to studying a particular topic or ministry, and I would become convinced and preach it this way. Everybody ought to be doing this, whether it's teaching Sunday morning Bible classes or whether it's a particular program. Everybody ought to be doing this. Probably not. Some folks don't do too well at some things. And so we find in Romans 12 and 1 Peter 4, 1 Corinthians 12 about there is one body and one Spirit, but there are diversities of ministries. And he uses the body as an illustration. Now, specifically what he's going to deal with, see, 1 Corinthians 13 is in the middle of 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, which is dealing with miraculous gifts in the church, and they were messing it up. And he just got through talking with them about how they treated the Lord's Supper and each other in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. So he says, one body, many parts. And the Lord places each one just as he purposed. Each one of us have gifts. We need to find out what that is if we hadn't thought about it. Okay, let's pick up with verse 20. But now indeed there are many members, that's diversity, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, legs. There are many members, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, on these we bestow greater honor. And our unpresentable parts have greater modesty. But our presentable parts have no need. But God composed the body, having given greater honor to that part which lacks it, that there should be no schism in the body. And I pointed out last week, why in the world did they stick? How many of you used schism last week somewhere? Do you do that plumbing? Do you find any schisms in your plumbing? Probably not. Don, did you find any schisms in your sandwiches? No schism. He said the reason we need to have that attitude that there should be no discord, no division in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. We ought to care one for another, just like my head and hands care for an infected toe. All the members, it's getting serious, it's getting green down there. Got to get to the doctor, got to get to the doctor. Well, I got something else I'd rather do. I want to watch this TV program. I want to do something. No, you better get to the doctor, because there's going to be schism if you don't. It's going to have to be whacked off. And so he said, in the body of Christ, there should be no schism, no division, no cutting off of folks, unless it becomes seriously infected. And we've already read 1 Corinthians 5. Out of all the things that happened in Corinth, one person he said you need to withdraw from. You need to deliver him to Satan. Not for everybody that did everything, but right now, here's one man you need to deal with. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now you are the body of Christ as a whole and members individually. And now he said, here's what I'll tell you. We're going to apply the lesson. And God has appointed these in the church: first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healing, helps, administrations, variety of tongues. All apostles? Shake your head this way. All prophets? All teachers? All workers of miracles? Do all have the gifts of healings? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? The answer to all those is no, 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 no. But earnestly desire the best gifts. He said, I'm not telling you that these are bad. In fact, he says that they have the gifts in the first chapter. So, earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way. Though I speak with the tongues, what's that? A gift of men and of angels, but have not love, I am become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. Remember when Barney Fife bought the cymbal, and he wanted to just bang it everywhere he went. And finally Andy said, put that thing down. It gets at an appropriate place, it's okay to cymbal, but that's not the melody line. And he said, all you are is just clanging. And though I have the gift of prophecy, that's one of the gifts, and understand all mysteries, that's one of the gifts, and all knowledge, that does not mean 2 times 2 equals 4. It was supernatural knowledge. And though I have all faith, well, everybody's got to have faith. He said, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the faith that could remove mountains, and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. So what's he saying? You got to grow up here. You think you're better than everybody else, or on the other side, which is just as damaging, saying I'm not worth anything because I can't speak in tongues, and I have never healed anybody, and I can't do anything except read the Bible. Well, just because you're not an ear doesn't mean you're not part of the body. So how am I going to treat people who are different from me? If I have the gift of tongues, I can speak in all kinds of languages. I've never bought the Babel course. I've never studied any other language, but I can speak. I bet you can't. No, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. You're not going to wish you could do something you can't do. See what happens, verse 18 of 12, now God has set the members, each one of them in the body, just as he pleased. Have you noticed I hadn't led singing a lot since I'm here? I don't think anybody's ever asked me. I think there's a pretty good reason for that. And so am I going to envy Don Marler because I can't sing as well as he can? No, that's not a good idea. Why don't you just preach and let him lead singing? You don't envy. If you have one of the gifts, you're at Corinth, you don't envy the people that had the others. Love does not parade itself. So don't stand up there and speak in tongues. You haven't got an interpreter and you say, nobody else can do that. Yeah. And you need to sit down because nobody can interpret that. And so we're going to see what he's going to tell them what love looks like in church. Now, some of you have been taught or maybe have reprimanded people for saying, don't say we go to church. Well, Paul talks about going to church or being in church several times in 1 Corinthians chapter 14. And if Paul can do it, I can do it. He uses the word in the church, not people who are not members of the church and are members of the church, but rather when you're in the assembly. So he's going to make rules for them to saying, here's what love looks like in church when you come to worship. Does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely. He's going to talk to them. Quit talking at the same time. Hush. Let's talk one at a time. He's going to have rules for that. That's rude to interrupt somebody else. Well, I can't help it. I'm just full of the Spirit. No, the Spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. If you got a spirit that can't hold your tongue, you got the wrong spirit. Because the fruit of the Spirit, and again, there's another one of my hobbies, you don't have fruits of the Spirit, there's just one. Galatians chapter 5, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, and so forth. And part of the fruit of the Spirit, a segment of that is self-control, and Paul is going to tell them how to exercise this. Does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. You notice there are several synonyms for toughing it out. Love suffers long. Bears all things. Endures all things. You ever get antsy when somebody is not leading the singing as well as you do? I wish he had speeded up. Why is he singing so fast? I can't keep up with him. Sometimes you just got to put up with it. When you're up there, you can do it like you want to, but right now we're just going to have to tough it out. Love never fails. Okay? Let's look at the last section. We have the necessity of love. We read that verses 1 through 3. Characteristics of love we've gone through several times. And then the permanence of love. Verses 8 through 13. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. What does he say? All these things that you're so proud of and you think you're better than everybody else then, guess what? These are going to disappear one of these days, and then what are you going to have, Charlie Brown? When that goes out of style. A lot of people are worried about AI. Anybody worried about artificial intelligence? See, there are a lot of people who say once this thing gets going, it's going to pretty well take over every job. They'll diagnose you better than a doctor. They'll do they'll write better than the best writers. It's just going to do all these kinds of things. And you know what folks are saying? First of all, it's probably not going to do all that. Pretty well everybody said it was the end of the world when we got telephones. You know, people, that's going to ruin everybody. And then we got radio, and then we got TV. That's the end of a civilization. And then lo and behold, we got computers, and that's going to kill us all. They're going to take over all our jobs. So what essentially people are saying is you better get ready to retool if your job is going to be taken over. A lot of people in the automobile industry have been replaced by robots. So what do? You better find you another skill. Maybe robot repair would be good. And what Paul is saying is, if you're basing all your feelings of self-worth on your supernatural gifts, you better retool, because they're going to come to an end. Robots are going to take over your job. You won't be there with an electric drill drilling holes in the car. Robots going to do that. You better find you another job. He said, prophets are going to fail, tongues will cease, knowledge will vanish away. For we know in part, we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect, mature, complete has come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became man, I put away childish things. Saying dad, mama, and all of that's kind of cute for kids, but at 30 years old doesn't sound too good. You better learn to talk. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, and then I shall know just as I am known. Now abide faith, hope, love, these three. The greatest of these is love. I am told, and I hadn't surveyed this, that not many people in the religious world interpret it this way, but I don't see any other way. What he's saying, these miraculous gifts are going to come to an end. What was the purpose of miraculous gifts we read last week? Mark 16, Hebrews 2. To confirm the word. Well, once you get it confirmed, you don't need to confirm it again. It's been confirmed. Somebody hands you a check. Well, I need to call the bank and see if you got enough money. Hey, has he got this $15.32? Okay, just one check before he left. Okay. And now, wait a minute, let me call back again. No, you don't need to call back again. The man just told you. Get it to the bank and it'll clear. And so you don't have to keep confirming the word and confirming the word. So, what happens next? Continuation of the same thing. In verses, in chapter 14, he gives us the rules for love using spiritual gifts in the church. And that's what we'll look at the next time. Here's the way you love people who are different from you. Now, we don't have miraculous gifts in the church, but we have people with different abilities. And he'll tell us, here you need to do your worship services. Need to do it decent, order, take time out. Don't everybody talk at the same time. Need to have some kind of plan, some kind of order to it. Not for tongue speaking and interpretation. Those been gone a long time. But he's going to tell us how love works. And it needs to work in the home. It needs to work in politics. It needs to work everywhere. But in 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, that's the way it fits into Paul's message. And if I can remember correctly, that's the first time in the history of the world I've ever taught it that way. I just kind of did 12, and then I did 13, and then we'll jump over to 14. But Paul didn't say, okay, now I got to write something so that I have something to read at the wedding ceremony. No, it was about miraculous gifts. And y'all acting ugly toward each other. And you don't need to do that. You need to express and demonstrate love. Thank you for your participation this morning.